Others, he's and she's. Welcome to the Endless Eight podcast, a curated list of the works of Kyoto Animation. I'm your host, Yata, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host with the most, Kai.
Hey, exciting episode for us today. Today we're going to be talking about Tamako Market.
Tamako Market. You gotta do it right? If you're gonna introduce it.
With doing the eye catch, right?
That mid-roll, just or the mid-cards, I guess you could call them. Tamako Market. I'm sorry,
Boy, that activated some type of like deep instinctual response in me to be like, oh.
Did you feel the bile rising?
Yeah.
So Hi, are we alone today?
No. Before we get into our conflict back and forth between you and I on how we feel about this show, we should say that we have a very special guest here. We are joined by Build, a very exciting guest. Can you say hi, Build?
Hey. Oh, that was hey. Hi.
Hello.
And Bill, could you also tell the people at home what you're famous for and why you're joining us to talk about Tamako Market?
Right. So, some of the things I do, I run a large anime community called Definitive Anime Chat Thing. And also I do art and make stupid jokes on Twitter. Yeah, that's kind of my thing. You'll find me taking a mickey out of things. It's just my normal thing to do.
Especially the BBC. You hold them over the fire pretty often.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm like the fake editor of the front page. So, yeah, I do all sorts of silly things. But, yeah, I watched Tamako Market, and now I'm with you two.
I thought you were going to give it that, so you didn't have to. And
no, but that's fine. I actually did string two other people to watch it with me, so we'll talk about that later, probably.
I would say they were absolutely lucky to have that experience. I feel like everyone should watch this show. Not to reveal my feelings too much.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tamako Market, around this time, we usually get a sort of breakdown on who was behind it and sort of where it sits, like chronologically in the Kyoto animation oeuvre. This one came out in 2013 and was subsequently followed by a movie in 2014. And a name that has been, I think, mentioned on almost every episode so far, possibly not during the Planet episode, is Naoko Yamada. And she is responsible for this masterpiece / abortion, depending what you're standing on.
And in lieu of like giving you a rundown of the cast, which I know I've done in a couple of the episodes, or like the main players or who we should credit for a lot of the production here, I just wrote K-On! Because it's literally just the entire staff of K-On! Doing this. Everything from character designs to the script to Naoko Yamada. Everything is just K-On! And perhaps that leads into our first, bit of discussion here, is that I've always kind of known through osmosis that this show, Tamako Market, was intended to be K-On! Season 3 in some weird way. Or I don't know the specifics behind it. I should have done this research. But like, they wanted to produce a K-On! Season 3, or the intent was to produce a K-On! Season 3, and somehow it got warped into this original production.
Yeah, so is it, before we hop into the details really quickly, I wanted to ask you, Kai, I'm already built. I was like, I had like 4 different options. I didn't know which one to go to, and I was having like an erotic moment. I was like, I went with build.
Yes.
And Kai, can we get your like backgrounds on Tamako Market and maybe K-On! As well,
right?
Just before, like, to sort of like set the bedding for this, because. I think it's good to like kind of get an idea where we're coming from, and if there are sort of like rose-tinted glasses or a sort of like nostalgia, like there was with Clannad, and maybe to some degree, Sound Euphonium as well.
Right. Build, you go
when
first.
We came upon this.
Take it.
Oh, all right. So Tamako Market, I only just watched it like for the first time. It was something I got last year for Christmas. Actually, it was one of those collector's edition box set things. I got it for Christmas. it's actually kind of interesting. My family actually like anime, like I do. Yeah. So the two other people I watch this with are my brothers. So we actually watched this together, and we were like, "Oh, let's put on one of the box sets." And I was like, "Oh, Tamako Market, let's watch that." And so that's how it happened. I've never watched it before, but a lot of people I know and that I'm friends with have seen Tamako Market before. So I've been told numerous times over the years, Build, come on, you got to watch Tamako Market. I know you'll love it. And it's like, yeah, I will, but this is on at the moment and I got to watch this. And, I have spent all this time and now I'm watching it. Well, I finished it now. K-On! Though, that was quite a few years ago. But I've only watched it once though. Yeah. KyoAni is a bit of a weird one. Like, until only a few years ago, I wasn't actually watching any KyoAni at all. So it's a relatively new thing for me.
We should also say that kind of like your server is kind of very in the orbit of this specific type of anime, right? Like, there's when you talk about anime in general, there's like magical boys fighting each other, and that's like this area of anime and the shonen and whatever. And then your server is like as far divorced from any of that as you could possibly get, right?
Yeah.
You're very familiar with magical girls, like we said. Aria, the animation, is a big reference for you. So I'm surprised then that Tamako Market you only got to it just now, because it seems like so far in your wheelhouse that you would have seen it and been familiar with it.
Yeah, it's weird because like you would have thought I would have seen it already, but like I am hopelessly bad at watching stuff on my own. I just I go, okay, let's watch some stuff with friends or let's watch stuff with my brothers. And yeah, like the only anime I've watched recently in like the last 3 years on my own, I recently watched Love Live Sunshine. But I had to push myself to watch that on my own.
Did not expect that to be the answer.
Yeah, had to push it. But yeah, I just don't do that for some reason. I just like showing people and sharing things with other people. And that's what's so good about running a community like that. You can share stuff with other people.
I can totally relate to that as well, because my sort of like introduction to anime as such was through like a weekly magazine that might have been released in the UK as well. But it had like Blood the Last Vampire and Vampire Hunter D. But it was like Studio Ghibli is like myself, my brother, and my sister all got into it together. And that was like a kind of a bonding thing for us as we were coming up, like through our adolescence, was like collecting the DVD Blu-rays of the DVDs of the Studio Ghibli. And then that sort of like we all sort of have our own sort of taste in anime. And I definitely took it further than them in terms of like they would probably refer to me as the anime guy, but it was always cool. Like I remember like Film 4, which is like it's a TV network or TV station in the UK, and they would have like summertime marathons of like Studio Ghibli movies, and it was such a cool like vibe watching those with my like siblings, and like sort of like it was cool. I find like that's one of the cool things is like seeing that as like a kind of like a tenant or like a core piece of my like childhood and adolescence. It's like experiencing that with my brother and sister, and forming our taste collectively together.
Totally. So did you show them K-On!
No, it will be a hard sell. My sister maybe, but my sister's more into like I got my sister to watch Shogun Roku with me, which I know you're not a fan of, but I am such a like I do legitimately think that's the best anime. And I thought she would appreciate it. With my brother, it's more like he has a kid now, so and she would have been born around this time. So like our big thing was just like counting down the days that we could show her like My Neighbor Totoro, and she would appreciate it, right?
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So we will make a wee of her yet.
You still got time.
She's got no choice in the matter.
So I guess I'll go then. So I got back into anime in 2011. I very specifically remember it being 2011 because Steins Gate, Madoka Magica, it was airing. And one of the things back then is what you would do is if you're getting into anime was watch K-On!, because of course you did. And I think K-On! Was one of the first like 3 anime that I watched, as an adult. And so it kind of like set the basis. You said, Bill, that you avoided somehow watching most of the KyoAni shows. Well, I started with Haruhi and K-On! So that was kind of just what anime was for me as a modern weeb. But I guess that the more interesting thing is I too also did not watch Tamako Market until this week. And I knew of Tamako Market's existence, right? I'm very much aware. I watched the first episode and I said, boy, this doesn't look great. This looks like a bad K-On! And that was my impression of it and why I had avoided it. But to talk about like watching anime with your things, actually, I do have a story. K-On! Was on Netflix back in the day in America. And I remember watching the episode where they count the cars that go past. They get a job. They're trying to get guitar. I think this is the first season. They get a job counting cars that go by with their little thing. And I remember that scene being on, and my late father came into the room, and he was like, what are you watching, son? And he had showed me Cowboy Bebop and Akira and like, sci-fi. He was big into sci-fi. And I was like, so the girls are counting the cars that go by, and that's about it. It's a good show, Dad. And yeah, that's one of the things I remember very distinctly, trying to sell K-On! To somebody. But I guess that goes to speak about the appeal of the cute girls doing cute things show, which I think is at the core of any argument we might have of the efficacy of K-On! Versus Tamako Market. Like, what is watching this show and what are we trying to get out of Tamako Market? Is that too broad a question to start a discussion on?
No, I think that's fair. Let's do it, right? Let's do that.
Yeah.
I guess I'll hop in here as like someone this is not my first time watching it. I think I've seen Tamako Market like 3 times now. And what I get from Tamako Market as opposed to K-On! Is kind of something similar that I get to like Laid Back Camp, or I guess it's in that sort of sphere of cute girls doing cute things. But this one sort of feels like soul food or like a comfort blanket more to me than with K-On! With K-On! I felt it was more like hijinksy, if that makes sense. With this one, I think there's like, now maybe you could say K-On! Season 2, because I think K-On! Season 2 is vastly superior to Season 1. And a lot of that is because there's like sort of like pathos, especially in like Azuna, sort of like wrestling with the fact that eventually she will be alone and the one left behind. Like, I find this one is like, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily like cute girls. I think it's like, or like, it's not so much like these 4 girls, right? Like it is with K-On! And they're like the center of the universe. It's like the wider community itself. And I think there's an element in this in Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid as well, where there's like this wider community of just like fucking awesomeness that I just like love. And there's like these moments, these very tiny moments that are very like profound, I would say. They don't occur that often, but there's like a few that really like kind of like choke me up. And I just don't experience that with K-On! So for me, like Tamako Market is like one part, this sort of like, I think it would be like qualifies that was it Inuyashiki, that kind of
Iyashike.
Like, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I get that, like, I could put on an episode of Mushishi and just like it's a therapeutic experience. Like I find Tamako Market sort of like fills that same sort of void, or fills that same sort of void in me personally, and that's one of the reasons why I really, really enjoy it. How did you guys experience it?
I think Tamako Market goes out of its way to sell you on the world building of this one shopping arcade, and that's like its clear objective. I respect what you're saying, Yata, and I think that is the correct interpretation or the correct reading of Tamako Market, or the most correct one that I could possibly see. I would just say though that none of that hit in the same way for me. Like I'm a big fan of Iyashike build. I know you got to get in here and talk about your feelings on the genre. And I was off put by the wider community. There's like moments in Tamako Market, and we could talk about like get to our moments, but like the moment at the end where she cashes in all her like cards in this kind of like climatic moment of how much she has given back to the community, and she gets her medal. It's like that's supposed to be this big triumph, this big symbol of her coming, like respecting this local community so much and loving it, and her care for everybody around her. And I was just rolling my eyes so hard when she's like, "I lost my medal." And as far as themes go, that theme being so, I would say, stillborn or so ineffective at making me care about that area is probably my main complaint with Tamako Market.
Build?
You gotta jump in. Come on.
Okay, so what I felt about it, you can definitely get that Iyashike vibe from the whole thing, that you have this community. Tamako is already embedded in that community as well, and she regularly interacts with all these different people. You have like the record shop. She'll sit there, have a coffee, have a tea, they'll have a chat, they'll put some music on, and it feels quite genuine as well. Like, you have shopkeepers, they're having a conversation, sometimes they might have a fight. That happens. It's a normal thing, and yeah, I can see that happening. Like, if I'm walking home, I'll see like shopkeepers having a chat, or they're going into each other's shops and having maybe they'll get something from each other, and it's like, that seems normal, right? And it's like the medal thing, I didn't really, I don't know, I actually forgot. Even though I watched it a few days ago, I was like, wait, medal? Oh yeah, that medal. yeah, but I didn't care about that. Like, it's just like, oh, I mostly cared about the fact that Tamako was there, she kept talking to all these people, and the whole thing was around that. I didn't really care about that part of it. So I quite like Tamako Market because of not the end, but the journey that led to the last episode. And to extension, Love Story, which we'll definitely be getting to later, I hope.
Yeah, I watched Love Story, so yeah, we can talk about that too.
Good.
So, I don't know that I want to leave the Kaon comparison yet, because I thought, like, that was my objective, right? Is figure out why I drastically enjoyed Kaon and why this in so much is the spiritual sequel to Kaon, and yet I did not care for the hijinks or the it didn't hit me in the same way. And like, what is the missing link there? And I think the first point of comparison, which might be good to transition into talking now about the characters of Tamako Market, is that there's something more or something less in Yui, or there's something different, I suppose, in the cast of Kaon, not even in how they like are structured. Like what you said, Yata, about it being composed entirely of just the 4 or 5 girls is totally true in Kaon. It's very limited, much more limited in the scope. But I think there's something more in Yui specifically as protagonist, as lens of which we're viewing or introduced to this world, and character, than there is in Tamako. And I think this is my other like major quibble with Tamako Market, is that Tamako, the character, she's just not anything. She's just, okay, let me go on my rant. All right. Before you all get upset. Like,
oh dear.
When you talk about a character, okay, I don't know whether I can compare her to Yui or talk about like characters in general. Let's talk about characters in general. Agency. What does the character do? What do they want? What is their objective? How am I invested to the character? In the first episode of Princess Tutu, Duck wants to dance with the prince. I'm like, oh shit, okay, Duck wants to dance with the prince. In the first episode of Kill la Kill, I'm like, Ryoko wants to kill her, or Yuko wants to find her father's killer, right? Like a revenge. Okay, got it, good. What is Tamako? What does Tamako do? What does Tamako present? She wants to keep the status quo. That's like the only conflict that happens in basically Tamako Market and Tamako love story. Like she has nothing other than enjoying this right now, right? Or the life she leads and talking endlessly about mochi. So that directly contrasts with Yui, who in that first episode we see is like lost or like confused, doesn't really have any friends outside of one, you know? She doesn't know what she wants yet. She's kind of incomplete. She finds it in the light music club and in her passion for playing the guitar that she doesn't know she has. And that's a much more engaging story, even if it's not the focus of the plot every episode, even if it's cute girls doing cute things. Like, I can get behind Yui and her arc in a way that Tamako does nothing for me. That's my rant.
Okay, can I hop in for a second? Is that okay?
Please. I'm sorry.
Right
I had to go off.
Okay. So I'll just like set it out in the beginning. I think I absolutely adore Tamako. I'm going to say it. I just find her relentlessly sincere. And for some reason, as I go through life, I appreciate that more and more in characters. It's one of the reasons why I really love, the second years in Sound Euphonium, because I find there's like a lot of that sincerity in them as well. I think a lot of the reason like Yui, like I think if we're going to get into like the weeds of like how the characters were constructed, I think I would sort of like see Tamako as more of like an iconic character. And by iconic, I mean like the same way that Aragorn would be iconic, or a lot of shonen protagonists are iconic. And the idea is like, if I had to put it out in 2 sentences, right? A character like Yui, sort of like the world changes her and she sort of like grows, right? Well, I think a Tamako, she changes the world. Okay. So it's like an inverse of the traditional sort of like hero's journey. You see this a lot in like, actually, I think a good example of this would be recently is like Demon Slayer. We're sort of like, and a lot of people don't like this because they don't like, there's no growth, but the growth happens around them. Okay. Like they're like the catalyst for growth in other people. And the second reason I think where it sort of like disconnects with K-On! Is I see this as more of like a series of vignettes. Like you'll have like 2 episodes about Anko. Okay. You'll have 2 episodes about Mochizo. You'll have 2 episodes about Midori. Right. And they're sort of like, it sort of reminds me of a little bit of something like a Pulp Fiction, or like, I guess to keep it in sort of like the, like Japan-centric or whatever, it's something like Midnight Diner. I think is like a weird little comparison to this. And so I don't think it's not really with Tamako, it's like, it's not what I get from her. It's more what I see her giving, if that makes sense. So I don't really want her to change. I don't want her to grow because her, like her nature is fundamentally sort of like pure. And the way that character was kind of constructed, I just love how that kind of like radiates outwards towards the other characters. And it kind of plays back into that sort of, this idea that it's sort of comfort food. You know what I mean?
I think I do. I do.
Yeah. And like, I mean, I completely agree. Like, Tamako is very much as she is. What you see is what you get with Tamako. And everyone else kind of orbits her, if that makes any sense. Like, she's the sun and everyone else is the planets that revolve around her. And everyone's changing a bit around her. Like, Mochizo's development over the series is that he gets more confident in how he acts towards Tamako, and that again culminates in the film. But Tamako herself, like, she doesn't need to do anything. It's kind of like one of the main complaints about, like, Tropical Rouge Precure, for example. A lot of people say Manatsu is she barely has any episodes. Like, she has a lot of episodes, but she don't change. She's the same. She's this really happy-go-lucky girl. She's always there. She's always doing things. And it's like, well, does she need to change? That's the whole thing. She radiates this energy, and everyone else changes around her, and that's fine. Like, I don't need anything to happen from Tamako at all. She is what she is, and that's fine.
I think that portrayal of her as lead pretty cure is that one hit me.
It works so well.
I get you.
It was a nice reference as well. I was like, ooh, wow. I was dropping Demon Slayer over here.
Yes, that's why I had to have a build on the podcast.
Poles apart.
That's why I had to have Build on the podcast. I can't. He speaks to me in my language. One thing I want to jump on that you specifically mentioned is that it's episodic, and Tamako Market is indeed absolutely episodic. There's chunks for Anko, there's chunks for Midori and for Kana. So let's talk very briefly about those, because I loved those episodes. Very specifically, the Midori episodes. Those were awesome. She is like a much more intelligent character. And does some really good slice of life drama stuff back and forth with a lot of character. But she gets like 2 episodes and then nothing, and the same thing happens for Kana too. Like, Kana is the best character in this show by far. She's amazing.
Kana is amazing, but the best. Yes. I got a case here for Mochizo being best character. Because if you think of this, right, here's a male. Wait, let me lay it.
I do want to hear it.
Here's how impossible of a task is this to like set forward a male sort of love rival to a sort of like potential Yuri love interest from a Kyoto animation show directed by Yoko Yamada, and not come out hating Mochizo. I think Mochizo is very admirable. Like, and the fact that like. He literally, it's, if you think of like Sound Euphonium, for example, again, to go back to this, like his sort of like analog and the shit that guy gets. I'm watching like Mochizo going, this guy is an upright fella. He's decent. Like when he went to check on Anko after she said goodbye to her crush, I was like, that was really sweet. And this guy, he offered up his points when the medal situation happened. And there's like, he just comes from a good place and he's interested in making like movies. Like he seems like a cool guy. I think, and then you couple that with the love story with the movie. Like, obviously, your heart sings when Kana's on screen, right? Like she's got like the best parts of the girls in K-On, the cutest parts. She's also the cutest Kyoto Animation Kana. Like whatever the Dragon Maid fans are going to say. Like,
I was going to say Dragon Maid on blast.
No, I'm saying it because I think she's
you're totally
absolutely
right.
adorable.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of like, I think like Mochizo is sort of like. I don't know. He sort of like stands for me as like just how awesome I found the arcade community. Like, I loved like what I got from all of those people, and like the girls were fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but with Kana, I felt like she was more of like she was like a really good like trick or like a one note thing. She's so quirky and sort of like downbeat and sort of like. She's going to grow up to be sort of like alternative, and all the jocks are going to secretly fall in love with her or whatever. Where Mochizo was like, he felt more like a character to me rather than like a gimmick. Like no shit in Kana. I fucking love Kana, but I thought Mochizo like kind of like an MVP of this thing, which considering again, I know
that's so much credit. You're totally right though that like I hate a lot of the male character or the love interest that you brought up in those shows, but I do not hate Mochizo, and that's surprising now that you've mentioned it, that I feel that way about him.
It actually speaks to the credit that we know Mochizo's name. I cannot tell you the bloke from Sound Euphonium. I don't even know his name. Who is he? Who is this guy? When does he appear?
This trainer.
I know Oriki. Oriki's good in Yorker, but who the heck is the Sound Euphonium guy? I don't know.
I should
Mochizo
know this.
is there. He's a core character, and he's a part of the show. And he's there throughout the whole thing.
Like you could date Mochizo. Like you could see a character in a show dating Mochizo and be like, yeah. Mochizo.
Do you know what? And I know this is kind of like weird because they're kind of like a conflict. Because they were sort of like love rivals, or at least inferred to be love rivals. But I thought the Mochizo Midori scenes together. Around the beach episodes, which again I generally hate beach episodes. That was one of my favorite episodes in this series.
Yes, I will agree. Yes,
I thought they had a weird chemistry. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I guess you could say there's sort of like a brothers in arms thing where we're sort of all going towards the same goal, but only one of us could be there. Hey,
I love romance. I love teenagers figuring out what love is and isn't. That's one of my favorite things in the entire world. And like that just it feeds all to this point that like Tamako Market would just be a better show without Tamako. that like just give me more Kana, give me more Midori and Moshizo, and like
Okay, here's one for you. What did you think of Anko compared to something like an Ui from K-On? Because I like kind of like Anko's sort of like, I don't know. She seemed to have a little bit more like vinegar in her personality. Where like Ui's like God love, like Yui would be literally dead if Ui wasn't there, right?
Right.
Anko is sort of like I could see her being a sort of interesting kind of like protagonist as well. Like maybe like, because you see her in the future, like her arc in my mind is like, her rebelling and her wanting to go to college, or her not wanting to do anything got to do with Mochi, right? In the future, so, she's a fascinating little character there as well.
A couple things. First off, Yui is like 2 standard deviations below the bell curve on intelligence. She's like unsustainably dumb, and that's kind of part of her appeal. And Tamako is like pretty average on the lower side of average, but still nowhere near a Yui. So they're little sisters being a bit different roles. I will totally agree that Anko has so much more than Ui has going on, and that's totally valid. I appreciate Anko so much more as a character there, and her episodes are wonderful too. Like I would watch more of Anko, honestly, because she has some real character drama going on. As far as their relationship, whatever. Just because it involves Tamako, then I'm like, who cares?
Yeah, see, that's a tough beat, for a show that's basically everything is kind of involved.
That's what I'm saying.
I love her, dude. I cannot fathom this.
I like Tamako as an older sister, because having a sister that's just like, oh, Anko, are you all right? Like, you could come out the wardrobe. Like, I'll help you out. Like, but that's fine. Like, you don't need like a bold and brash upper like older sister. Like, you just got someone who's just like, hey, come out, let's have a chat.
Speaking of bold and brash older sisters, though, and this is sort of like a theme around this time, Mochijo's sister is quite bold and brash, but she's also kind of like attractive, So it's like there's a bit of a run here because Chunibyo has the same sort of thing where there's like a very attractive older sister, like who's also kind of like mean. It's like that's one of the things I loved about this in terms of like character design. Whereas you'd have these like very, 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 very side characters, and they're sort of like really well crafted. And I would really notice this when they're having their like meetings, or you'd watch like events at the school when they're playing badminton, or when they're spinning their batons or whatever. And you just like I was like find myself like kind of drawn around to the other characters that were sort of like occupying that space. And there's a real like high bar. Like it's KyoAni, so you shouldn't really be surprised. But I find myself sort of just like kind of marveling at how well constructed, like, and how sort of tactile these characters are. And
we mentioned it last episode too, right? Like when we were talking about free character designs, and we were like, give me that Mo Blob, give me that. The character designs here are so appealing in the same way that K-On's are, or just like they kind of got memed on back in the day for these KyoAni Moe Blobs. But if you appreciate them, these are good Moe Blobs. Like everything looks gorgeous. And we have gone 33 minutes into this podcast and we have not mentioned either Choi or Dara. Yeah. So this might be a great time to do so.
Oh, good.
Okay, here because I know this is going to be. You want to get back?
This is going to be an interesting topic.
Do you want to get back on the soapbox first?
No, I want you guys to speak. Please,
please. Go on. Okay, so Choi and Dara. Who should I start with first? I think Choi, because I think Choi is quite an interesting one. Choi comes into the series quite late, about halfway through, and she comes in and there's this underlying plot through Tamako Market, which is like Dara is this bird who's just appeared, and somehow he can communicate with this mysterious couple, right? And then Choi comes along, and she's one of them, and she's trying to find a suitor for the prince, which is really dumb. But it's really funny as well, because it's like, okay, what the heck is this all about? There's a talking bird that's also a projector or something. Choi is Choi's really funny because she beats up Dara, and that's funny because Dara's dumb, and we have to beat up the bird, right? And all the time she just berates him, and it's funny, right? But she's really nice with everyone else, but she just beats up the bird all the time, and that's someone we need. Someone to beat up that bird and just say, what the heck are you doing? Why are you fat? Why are you lusting over women for the 10 millionth time? What? You can't do this in front of the prince. What's wrong with you?
See,
right?
It's extra diegetic because we, the viewer, after hearing Dara for 7, 8, 10 episodes, want to beat up Dara, and then Choi gives us that catharsis. She acts out our deepest desires.
Now, let's say before you get on the soapbox, I'm kind of with you on the Choi thing. I could that's one of those. I thought the physicality, like the humor, the physical humor in Tamako Market was I don't know what it tickled me just the right way every time. Like every time Tamako got sculled by that paper telephone thing that they were doing, without fail, I was just like, oh god, I love Tamako. And every time Choi sort of body slams or what does whatever to Dara, I was there for it. But you kind of mentioned Steins Gate earlier on, and Dara really reminds me of Hoim Kyoma, the Rintaro's alternative personality. If ever Mamoru Miyano was born to play a role in a Kyoto Animation IP, I feel like he was born for Dara. I could just I could see he was so bombastic, and there was a couple of moments I was just I love hate this part. When he was talking about the dance is not something that you have to, it's structured in order, it just comes to you. And then he sort of in honor of my own greatness, let me perform this dance. And that was just such a him moment, I think they really established him as a character in terms of oh, that's Dara. And I thought it took me 3 episodes just to really oh no, this I have a good handle on this character, and I think you're either going to love him or hate him.
Yeah, so that scene, Dara, I think you say love or hate, but in some ways I appreciated a lot of what Dara was, the very high diction, the very full of himself and aspects of Dara, the kind of the physical comedy. I thought the best joke was the birdhouse, where he's shaped into the birdhouse and they try and squeeze him out of the birdhouse. That was my favorite joke in probably the entire series. Dara, I don't think is the problem in this show. But when you watch Tamako Love Story and Dara is not featured at all in the show, and then you kind of are like, oh man, we don't have to have him talking the entire time about, nonsense. Then I'm like, man, maybe that was a contributing factor to why I didn't quite jive with this show. But Choi is, I think Choi is more the problem. And this is weird because I like Choi as a character. I like what she brings, and I like, those interactions with Dara and how she's nice and comfy, and they, give her clothes because she's from the Southern Islands and she doesn't have any cold weather clothes. And those moments are great, little heartwarming bits of slice of life that you come to see here, that you want. But at the same time, Choi represents this aspect of Tamako Market that I think really failed, and that's the series composition and the overall plot and tying everything in. Choi is here ostensibly to find a bride for the prince, and she eventually lands on Tamako as the bride for the prince. And that whole plot, a giant scare quotes on plot, right? Because it's not. It's it's not even a fully fleshed. It's not a created kind of functional dramatic moment. It's just a cursory kind of surface level, will Tamako go leave? And an excuse to bring in another character. There's a million ways you could have implemented Choi, and they did so in the most least committal and least interesting way, plot-wise at least.
Well, I don't know. The thing about Choi is, she's been brought in and she comes in halfway and it seems like, well, why wasn't she there from the beginning? She could have been around. She could have interacted more with Tamako and Dera and stuff like that. But it's like, we get this problem quite a bit with like kid shows in general. I know Tamako Market is not a kid show, but kid show like structure is normally like you have something at the beginning and then halfway through you've got this groundbreaking moment of some sort and then everything changes. You got Choi. And it's weird because it's a one core anime, but it kind of has 4 core characteristics where you have that mid-season finale sort of thing. I actually really liked episode 6, which is the haunted house episode.
Yes.
And that immediately after you got Choi. It's weird because I feel like that haunted house episode was like, this is like, Tamako is now interacting with everyone. She's doing this massive thing for the shopping district. It's like, right, this is like the big test of the first half of the show. And then Choi comes in. It's like, right, this is the next big challenge. What are you going to do now? You've been told, you're now going to marry this prince that you've never met before. And it's like, but I want to stay here at the shopping district. This is what I love. I now need to think about this. But I really like Mochi. Mochi's really good. But, it's Tamako. So she's like, actually, I really like Mochi.
So anyway, before we get off the character bit, I have to say one of the other differences that are very, very specific to Tamako and Dera are how much they talk, how much they always talk. And I tried to think back on K-On! And I was like, I don't think they talk this much. And Tamako just goes on and on about Mochi. And it's like, I'm glad you have a passion. I'm glad you enjoy something. But literally, it's the most boring Mochi talk. Perhaps the best thing that comes out of the Mochi is when she's talking about butt Mochi later on. And it was that love story.
Yeah.
As a love story, yeah. Butt Mochi and boob Mochi. Very, very funny. But no, she was insufferable when she was talking about Mochi. And then a lot of Dera speeches, while they're funny because he's using the big words and everything and he's very vain, there were times where I was just like, dude, just shut up. Just give me something else. I have a very low tolerance for empty dialogue, I think. And a lot of Tamako Market is empty dialogue.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to take that.
If I were to say something though, I think the best analog for Dera is Johnny English. I'm not sure if you've watched those films.
The Rowan Atkinson movies?
Rowan Atkinson, yeah. Johnny English, he's very verbose. He thinks very highly of himself. But imagine Johnny English, but he's a fat bird. That is Dera. Dera is a womanizing secret agent bird who's like, I actually think I'm the best bird in the world. And, Tamako, you will feed me Mochi. And it will be awesome.
It will be a privilege for you, my dear. Because I am, in fact, the bee's knees.
Yeah.
Also,
I love him.
Why is the bird attracted to human women? He has this whole thing of like every episode, every time he sees Shiri, who we haven't mentioned, or because she's not that crucial of a character or interesting. But like every time she pops up, the bird is hitting on her. And I'm like, why do I have to sit here? And it's like when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you try and like the person, you don't role play the romance. I'm not going to sit here and role play the romance while you romance this NPC. Like who cares? Like this is how I feel when do I have to watch the bird hit on the human girl? Like I don't understand this. Why is this included in your TV show? It baffles me.
Well, I think it's like it was a bit of a reoccurring joke, and they would sort of do it in different ways. But one of them was through this sort of like Shiori sort of like love interest that he had, where he would sort of be doing like he's on A, while they're all on track B, and they're sort of like existing simultaneously, and then sort of they will like move like we'll say and scene, and they're gone, and it's sort of like the punchline is that he's sort of like, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah,
but like no one was listening the whole time. Like it was oddly effective for me. I don't know why. Like I said,
you're right.
But again, I was probably like coming from a points of like, I kind of like almost like want to like it, if that makes sense, because I'm just like I have like so much like kind of built up sort of like stock in the show that they're kind of like the moments that maybe other people might find a little bit less, charming, we'll say. I'm just sort of like, oh, it's just reinforcing this kind of like thing that I really like,
But
so I'm looking for the goodness in it.
Right. That's the cute girls do this slice of life thing, or if that's the mystic veil that if you can accept these characters and have this believability in them, then they can do a lot of stuff, and you'll buy into it. And I think that's a very tough thing to do. And I've tried to share a lot of anime that have this kind of slower pacing, and it's like, well, you got to really care about the characters and the world, and you just got to be bought in. And something like Arya the animation is very guilty of this too. If you're not bought in on the characters, if you're not in believing them and in on the jokes and invested emotionally, then you're not going to get any of the comedy and any of the world building and any of the warm fuzzies that you are intended to feel. So does the writing and the production values and the music and everything give us enough of this investment in the show and break down that fourth wall enough to get me in there and feeling those feelings? And for Tamako Market, I really don't think it does. And then it cascades down to things like, do I find Dara charming or annoying? And I fall on the annoying side.
Can I give my like Dara moments? Because I was thinking about this. There's a few that I was like,
top 10 Dara moments.
Yeah, like
top 10 Dara moments.
Special shout out to every time he would turn around at the beach and there was this sort of like grotesquely sort of like overpowered looking cat or pigeon or seagull or dog, and him sort of like just like pulling a whitey, and then just like, oh yeah, like that. But the one that was just like really sort of tickled me, and this was kind of like this was another like fine just like moment of like Naoko Yamada's like mastery, because I think she really leveled up in the series in terms of like technically from K-On! But when in episode 8 where they were in the record / coffee shop, and I think it was Beethoven he started playing. It was like and they were telling him that he's going to like he has to go on a diet. And again, this is this moment where he's sort of on A and they're all on B, and they're sort of like, yeah. And it's sort of like all their sort of enthusiasm is counteracted by this like really foreboding music, and he is like still as a statue. And I just thought it was such a well constructed like moment, in terms of like comedy. I thought that's where
the opera, right?
It might have been. Yeah. Actually, I gotta say, like this show was actually I thought it was really good for needle drops as well. I think Naoko Yamada's got a very good ear for like music. I would imagine she's got quite good taste, because I find this in Liz and the Bluebird as well. Like the insert songs were strong, and I think it was episode 2. There was like the French song Un lieu de rencontre, I think it was called, and they just sort of played this sort of like 60s like French pop thing. And I'm a fan of that genre. Like there was a period of my life when I was like in high school, I was really into like 60s French songstresses. I know it's like absurdly pretentious.
Without talking about the Who in silent voice. It's like it hits you straight away in that film. It's like, oh my god, how did they get this song?
Yeah, that's such a mad moment when you have like a song you recognize in an anime. I think I've heard like Scarborough Fair like in 10 different anime, and every time it's sort of like, oh, I know Scarborough Fair.
I'm probably one of like 3 people in our generation that had actually heard Fly Me to the Moon before Evangelion and heard Frank Sinatra singing it, right?
But if you want to hear a lot of like, normal music, watch Jewel Pet Sunshine. It's just full of that thing. It's got like, you watch like episode 8 and then all of a sudden Aerosmith starts playing.
Oh, that's great.
It's just amazing.
Out of curiosity, what Aerosmith is it? Because like, there's like 3 Aerosmith songs like each other. Okay.
Yeah, they play that. They play like there's a Beatles track. There's a shot-for-shot rendition of Flashdance in there. The What a Feeling scene. Yes. It's shot-for-shot exactly the same.
What a feeling.
Yeah, like Oh my god, there's like a comparison video on YouTube with.
I think a lot of people are doing that right now with Chainsaw Man. Apparently, it's like referencing every fucking movie ever
they
existed.
are. But it's like, once upon a time, that was Jewel Pet Sunshine, paving the way, as kids anime tends to do.
See, there's another universe where instead of Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan, Jewel Pet is the franchise that all the kids are into, and it gets
all the cool kids. Yeah.
But
I'll go back and watch it.
If only.
Yeah, right.
Can we talk a little bit about Naoko Yamada's direction for a few minutes? Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely, please.
Man, I think this was like I could see a lot of Liz and the Bluebird in this, in terms of like, what would become Liz and the Bluebird. I fucking loved how she framed shots. I loved like how she's clearly very, very influenced by like live action movies, we'll say. Like how she composes a shot, the depth of field. And then just like I know it's almost a meme at this point, but like what she chooses to focus on in a specific scene. And this comes back to earlier on when we were talking about I really like the Mochizo Midori moments, when they were both sort of like revealing their sort of, at least to the audience, if not explicitly to each other, their feelings for Tamako. She would just randomly focus on like an eye or a mouth or like their torso for these, and I just thought it was fucking fantastic. I felt like this was, I don't know, I felt like she really like story and plot aside, if you don't enjoy it, you don't enjoy it, and that can't be changed. But I think from a technical perspective, I was like, and this is, cut and paste for almost everything Kyoto Animation, but in this one, it was like it felt very distinctly her, and it's cool because I felt like with Kyoto Anime, with K-On!, it was more like the sort of like the style and the aura of the show, more so than the technical stuff. I felt like this one, it was just like it was like she really started becoming like a signature creator in my mind. I could see a lot of like her greatness, or what would become like a future greatness, in this one.
I would kind of also point directly towards Tamako Love Story in that regard. I thought the directing on Tamako Love Story was fantastic. It really, like, even from the beginning of the entire film, I was like, dang, this looks good, and not just on an animation level, even though it does too, those classic KyoAni production values. In regards to her, or the growth or the place in Kyoto Animation history, and like I find it very odd that K-On! Existed, and K-On! Was a success, right? Like almost indisputably, like through a societal impact and monetarily or anything, that this, in the ways that you've mentioned, is probably a better overall show from the production values or directing, or in certain angles is certainly better than K-On!. And yet, at the same time, this was an original creation, right? And we've kind of been talking about this in a couple of our KyoAni episodes of when did they shift away? They made a deliberate shift away from using established properties like your Haruhis and your Nichijos and whatnot, and then going to original IPs that they would be able to control and wouldn't have to split their cut with Kadokawa, et cetera, et cetera. So, and maybe this was some of the impetus between not doing K-On! Season 3, because K-On! For the manga continues. They go into college, and there's like content there that they could have drawn from. So when they shifted it and they decided to do an all original story from Tamako Market, like you say, we're going to make the K-On! Staff, we're going to have the K-On! Character designs, we're going to have like the same type of vibes, right? Of like cute girls doing cute things in that genre. How do you not then come up with something that is as engaging as K-On!? Or like, what was the contribution of the K-On! Manga to K-On!'s success? Do you get what I'm saying? If like these production values that are then better in Tamako Market, but it's subtracting the K-On! Manga and everything that went along with that, how did that not achieve the same level of success that K-On! did?
Well, I guess it had to be successful enough that they got the love story right out of it. It's just that I think,
yes,
man. It's one of those things like, I'm going to bring it back to a musical a little bit. I was thinking of this recently because I was listening to the band The Arctic Monkeys, right?
Okay.
So their second album, in my opinion, is like, it's objectively almost better than their first album, but their first album was a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And when that moment in time hits, it's just like the perfect, like, it's like you're kind of catching this sort of zeitgeist. And I feel like, if you think of like, there's certain shows that just like, or certain moments of like movies or like, and I think K-On! Was one of these moments where it was just like, this was the perfect time for this to happen. Yeah. And, you know, and you're coming like 4 years later with the Tamako Market, where there's a sort of like jadedness. Like I can imagine, we're seeing this, we're probably seeing this a lot now with isekai, right? Where there's like, no matter how good they are, like for example, I fucking love Ascendance of Bookworm. It's like one of my all-time favorite anime, but it's an isekai, and automatically that's a dirty word to some people, right? So there's this sort of like jadedness with, you know, 4 years after the Moe boom, we have this sort of like thing that could be, and I think it's unfairly, but it could be dismissed as like a Diet Coke version of K-On! Right?
Yep.
And it's like, I think all that I can hope in that instance is what will happen is eventually time will sort of play its course, and when we're out of that bubble and that sort of like the emotional sort of like milieu that's sort of like spinning around us at the time, we'll be able to look at it with sort of like a new eye and say, you know what, actually that was pretty good. You know, like I'd imagine a lot of like Nirvana fans might have had that with like their second album after Nevermind, right? Or like Radiohead fans, you know, after like the Bends, and they're like, oh, here comes OK Computer, and you know, I just feel like, you know,
I distinctly remember that. I distinctly remember the Moe Blob, cute girls doing cute things, hate back in the day. That the general landscape was tired of it, you know, and didn't want to embrace Tamako Market where it was at. So yeah, I think you're totally right. And I know, Build, you have to speak on this because this is where you live.
Yeah, I know. This is like how things are. And the thing is, when I look at Tamako in the setting that it's in, and in terms of the greater anime sphere, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I agree. Like, K-On! Happened, and then Tamako happened a bit later on. And in terms of its popularity, Tamako is generally kind of forgotten. Like, there was a moment of time, this thing was popular, and that's it. And I think you kind of get that with a lot of other shows. I mean, looking at another one that was quite big now, and it's actually getting like a little bit of a renaissance, is Manabi Straight. Like, this is a show like that at the time mostly forgotten. It was treated as a joke, the whole Manabi line thing. It was treated as, oh, this is this thing that equals success. But now people look back at it and thought, wow, actually, this is when UFO Table was actually like putting out some great stuff. Like, wow. Like, and this was 2008. Like,
I was gonna say, was that was during Garden of Sinners time?
Yeah, it was like around that time. They were doing like the ending of the show is stop motion, and like it was like very pre-Fate UFO Table when they were like experimenting, doing different things, and it was like, wow, where was this show all my life? And I think Tamako Market is kind of that same thing. People probably didn't watch it at the time. I think this is why, like, myself and Kai just didn't watch it at the time. Like, we end up watching it a lot later on, and then we go, oh, this is that show? Actually, I look at it and I'm thinking, yeah, this is actually pretty good, right? And it fits within the general wheelhouse that I'm in, sort of thing. But when it comes to anime and history, there are certain ones that kind of spark. The ones that everyone is talking about it and continue to. So we're kind of seeing that at the moment with Licorice Recoil. It's just come out this year. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone was going nuts about this show. Uma Musume, another big one. Everyone was talking about it. Tamako Market didn't have that spark, but it has the chance to create a legacy like 8-10 years down the line. And I think that's what it's starting to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be tied to Naoko Yamada's sort of like legacy as a creator herself, because like it or loathe it, this is going to be like, if you are a Naoko Yamada fan, and you see this a lot with, there's a certain element of like the anime community that are like they're sort of like her zealots, right? And a lot of the people who are creating in that sort of space, like they fucking love this show, and they'll like and it gets a lot of love, from those people. And as her star continues to rise, it sort of might match it. Another one that kind of came into my mind is thinking of like a forgotten sort of like, I'm surprised that didn't hit harder, was Flip Flappers. Like every time I think of Flip Flappers, it's like, how is this show not the fucking biggest show in the world at the time, Like it's got to the point that show's only like 5 years old, maybe 6 years old, and it sort of already feels like a lost sort of gem. Like that Flip Flappers needs to have a moment, and I pray that it does.
I'm totally right with you. I when I did my Magical Girl tier list, ranking every Japanese Magical Girl show, I put Flip Flappers in the very good, very important tier, and I had some people be like, "Is that show good?" And I'm like, "Bro, how have you not seen Flip Flappers? Come on!" I think,
it's like a perfect combination of like, if you're a Sakuga nerd, you have to watch Flip Flappers.
Totally.
If you're a Magical Girl fan, this is like like high tier.
Yeah,
I don't understand why it never got the love. It's fucking incredible.
But
it never did. And I think Rolling Girls, which is what I'm group watching at the moment, another show that I think it was kind of panned originally. Like after the first couple episodes, it kind of lost its luster a little bit. But if you give it a chance, it absolutely shines.
I should go back and watch that.
You have to go back and watch it. You have to kind of I think this is generally my kind of thing where I don't watch anime seasonally, because I feel like some shows just don't work seasonally. Like Yurikuma Arashi is another one. It just didn't work. But you watch that one back and it's like, this makes a lot more sense now, right? Because you can watch it at your own pace. And that's why I kind of just don't like seasonal stuff. I just watch it whenever I feel like it or something. But
I will dispute. I think you both have kind of landed on this thing where Tamako Market is a hidden gem. I don't think that's the truth. I think it's passable. It's a show. It's one of the Kyoani shows of all time, but it's not like, I don't know. It's not crucial to understanding it. Maybe in the context of Naoko Yamada, like I consider myself a Naoko Yamada fan. She does one of my favorite episodes of Nichijou, which we will be talking about in the future.
Coming soon after Munto.
But like, I think you're excusing too much in Tamako Market. I think that if you have a blank check, and you are literally given Kyoto Animation and everything that entails, and you are Naoko Yamada, and you can make anything you want. And this is, it's like that. Have you ever seen the Johnny Cash biopic with Joaquin Phoenix? And they're like, if you're dying in a ditch on the side of the road, and you had one chance to show the world about your time on Earth, Tamako Market is the thing that you would make. And it just blows my mind. Like, there are so many other stories that we could have gone with, and what you gave us was Tamako Market. Damn.
Well, I like this. You have to like, I think, kind of frame it in the fact that this is like a girl, like she's in her mid-20s at this point, I think, when she makes this, and I think that like, even to sort of have that sort of perspective on like, this is my contribution to the world, right? Like, she's only 4 years removed from sort of being sort of like fast tracked into K-On, right?
Right.
And I feel like looking at K-On and then looking at this, I can see that this, I can totally buy that this is something that which she would want to make, right?
Yeah.
Because like it's got little bits of like what will become sort of like you can see like with the Midori sort of thing, you can see like, oh, the Liz and the Bluebirds elements, right?
There are segments, right? There are glimpses, right, of something that could have been very engaging and very good storytelling, but the collective is not, at least from how I'm looking at it. So that just makes it feel like lost or so much of a wasted attempt.
Okay. You see, it's so hard to like. I almost don't understand where you're coming from. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
like
yeah.
so it's so like up my like I fucking love this kind of thing. It just reminds me like again it's like when we spoke. I don't know if we spoke on air about this before, but back in 2018 it was the year I think it was 2018 when there was the what was it called? Place Where the Universe was released.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I had on the Anime Addicts Anonymous, shout out to them podcast. They have this anime Oscars thing, and I voted like my nomination for Anime of the Year that year was Laid Back Camp, right?
Oh,
And a lot of people
okay.
are because I that's just like my kind of show, right?
Yeah.
Like I know it is cute girls cute girls doing cute things, and it's sort of like low stakes, high fun, and that's sort of what I want almost. Not all the time, you know. But like when I think of this or Flying Witch or Laid Back Camp, as I said, that just hits like it fills a need for me. And with this one, what I liked, like what sets it apart from Tamako Market, as I said, is this sort of like pathos and this sort of like deeper sort of thing that's going on emotionally. Like there's a couple of scenes I gotta shout them out because I just thought they were so fucking fantastic. You know, Afro Dude in the shopping market.
I do
when he
remember Afro Dude.
When he sort of turns and sort of like says that he to his like implied love, and we know he loves this girl, or he's at least enamored with this girl who works at the Rabbits bathhouse. Yeah, and he says, "I hope you find happiness."
Yeah,
and that's it. Like he doesn't. And that's just like I like the sort of like variations on love, because the obvious thing for the obvious way for that to play out is like this big sort of like declaration moment, and then to really compound how much I love this little arc that was going on. One of the ending scenes of that episode was her father sort of like alone cleaning the bathhouse by himself, and this kind of mirrors what Tamako's father feels when he's sort of confronted by this absurd Tamako maybe getting married thing. Like, come on, her heart is in Isagiyama. Like she's one of those people who's like it's in her blood, right? I don't know how anyone believed that she was ever going to leave, but that scene of him just cleaning alone, and they had that to frame that him having the sake and the udon place, and he's affected by it. And she says, like, I don't know who kind of like made the point, but like they said that, oh, he's struggling with the fact that his only daughter she's going to leave him, right? And just having that bathhouse scene, I find that really affecting. Like I was like, that's a moment you won't get in K-On! And because they spread the love a little bit more, you can have moments like that. And like obviously this is like someone who's watched it multiple times, so you can really focus in on these little things. Like I thought there was little moments like that, and then just the father playing the song, and I don't know, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I think you've really touched upon there is Tamako Market and family. Because I think that's actually one of the big themes of this show. Like how Tamako is part of a greater family, which is the shopping district, but also Tamako's family herself, with her sister, her dad, and her granddad, and the mum that passed away. And what was it? I think it was episode 9. They get into it a bit more about the relationship between the dad and the mum. And this is definitely something that Reiko Yoshida, who's series composition on this show, she's explored with this before, because we had Ojimajo Doremi. She was series composition on that. I have to bring Doremi in there.
I was also going to say, I looked it up. She did a bunch of Aria too. So
yeah, of course she did. And you know what? Like, one thing that she is very, very good at is exploring how characters relate to each other as a family. Like you have, and Doremi is an original anime. It's not based on anything. So the parallels there between Tamako Market and Doremi are kind of there in that regard. But you had like the Aiko story where she has her parents, they've had a divorce, she lives with her dad. And it's like, what is the family relation there? But now we've got Tamako, who is this girl who has a dad, a granddad, and a sister, but no mum. The mum's passed away. It's like, how does she interact with that? How does the dad think about that? We explore, like, one of the things in the show was Tamako had to remember this song, and it was the one that the dad had wrote for the mum. And it's like, it's really sweet. Especially when it turns out like Tamako was just humming it wrong and the dad had no idea And I thought, oh, this is so good. I love shows that focus on family. And I think that's why I like this show. I like Tamako Market for that.
When the father sort of like, the guy at the music store is like, oh, I didn't know he's like, she's too dumb to sing in key or something like that, or to remember that she's tone deaf. It's like, oh, because the father's an interesting character in himself. He's so abrasive and sort of like cantankerous. Yeah. But I find like that sort of like, then you're like, oh, his wife recently died and, it can't be easy, I guess, and he seems like a traditionalist, Yeah.
I like the dad, though. Like, yet another, like, extended character that has a bit of character drama going on, has a little nugget there, has something, is not just a repeated joke. When you were talking about Doremi and you mentioned Aiko, I thought of Ompu and her thing with her father and how that was explored in Doremi. And yeah, those are the stories that I find valid. I find good and interesting. I suppose you guys are making a lot of the cases of the strengths of Tamako Market, and none of them are related to Tamako or like the overarching narrative, except in the fact that Tamako is something that is played off of. And I guess this goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of the show, that Tamako is not so much a character as she is an embodiment of the place or the culture that they're in. And maybe I'm wrong here. Is it me or is it Tamako Market? Maybe I need to think about things differently. So I guess I should thank you both for kind of like providing me the context here that would make Tamako Market a little bit better. If Tamako Market is not about Tamako, then you can enjoy it more.
Or you could. I love Tamako, so it's like, again, I'll have to like with the caveat that you could also enjoy it for Tamako if you're of a certain disposition. Can I also just like just a little special shout out, because there's a lot of little like things that maybe are not like topic worthy, but I just wanted to kind of like profess an appreciation
let's
for.
Hit them all.
How beautiful is the design of the shop? Like every time you would get that sort of like forward facing like wide shot of the shop that she was in, I was like, God, that is such a fucking beautiful like design. It's like it has the bike parked in front of it, and it's just like, because it's KyoAni, it just looks so like lived in, and there's so much character on the shop itself. And then you got like I just really enjoyed like the physical front of the shop. It's just I'd love to visit somewhere like that,
I mean, art design and backgrounds are like, I can go through the Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya and take out all the characters and just look at the backgrounds and be like, yeah, that's real good. So I
push it. Also, and then there's another one. It's not. I never consider them a part of the show as such, but they do often get talked in sort of like, in the sort of like general discussion about anime in general, is the OP and the ED.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Let's talk about those.
You get up on the soapbox here again, and I hate to be the guy that's like, it's not K-On!, but you're literally coming from Don't Say Lazy, right? Like one of the best endings ever made in anime. Right? And the openings to K-On! Too are so catchy. And then you get Tamako Market, and I've already forgotten it. I'm never going to remember it on AMQ. There's the little stars, and they do the parade thingy. Man, oh boy, I was so disappointed in the OP and the ED. Go ahead.
Wait, the ED?
Please.
The ED is fired. The ED is fired.
Oh my God. How can you not remember the ED? Like, it's so iconic with the record, and it morphs into like the moon and that. And it's like, and all the flowers. It's like the flowers. KyoAni is so good with flowers. Let me tell you something. Like, my mum, right, she's walked and she's had a look at this and she's like, I want to watch this show because I'm a gardener and I want to see the flowers. It's like, look at these flowers. Look at these blooms. They're all in the ending, and it's so good. And it's like, it's such a nice song as well. The record is spinning, it spins. And it's like, it actually was really nice.
Apparently I missed it. I watched this so literally good. 2 days ago.
I love the ED. Like the OP's fine. I think the OP's nice. It's kind of like, it's like this happy, jolly song. Welcome to the Shop District. look how much fun we can have. Look at the funny bird doing dumb things, right? The ED is like, you've now watched this episode. Let's chill out a bit. Have a look at this record spinning. Look at these nice soft pillow shots of Tamako and that. And it's like, that's so nice. And it's so very much within KyoAni. It's a completely different vibe to Don't Say Lazy, but it works so well.
Okay, I had to pull it up on YouTube just to even remember what we're talking about. But go ahead while I'm watching.
Like I said, this is like my third favorite KyoAni ED. Like regardless, I think Don't Say Lazy is like a 1 or a 2 for me, and then the original Chinibia one. I just think that's such a fucking banger of a song. And but this one I think is like, it's more of a music video than what we got in K-On! Like you had these like you had these shots of like, you know, Kana or Midori and Tamako sort of just like popping up, and it felt very like well executed for what I think she was going for. I also loved like how they sort of like dimmed the saturation and the color, and again the song is just such a bop. It reminds me of like and this is a big compliment because it's one of my favorite EDs in any anime, is a Hokugo Distraction from what's that gamer show? You know, what's the show called? High Score Girl.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And again, and then it's sort of like a penguin drum as well. It has a sort of like similar element.
Don't even fucking speak those words on this podcast. Don't even say that,
dude. I seriously, this is like a fucking S tier ED. Okay. I don't know what's going on here.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you that this song, it completely works with Tamako. It works so well. And do you know what? It's like, it really speaks that you said it's kind of like a music video. It's like, this is what Naoka Yamada is doing now, right? Yeah. She's like, she spread her wings. She's gone out of KyoAni. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make this music video and I'm going to make some ads and stuff. Let's not talk about the Kit Kat adverts. Let's
Japan and Kit Kats.
Yeah, I know. But
figure that out. I don't know.
She, like, you know, it's like, she's very good at making these small 1 minute, 30-second vignettes. Yeah. And they work really nicely.
Man.
It's a cool down. I love that. In a show like Tamako Market, which is just fun hijinks for 20 odd minutes.
I can tell Kai is like
dumb bird. It's like, here's something cool.
I can tell right now Kai is like, fuck this shit. What's going on right now?
I mean, I listened to the song again. The song's all right. The song's all right. I get you. And there's some like After Effects processing. Yeah, they do the little focalized thing. They do the light, the hard light. Yeah, it's fine. I don't even. I would say the first season free ending is like 10 times better than this ending. I would say I could list a bunch of them. The Nichijou, Hari Yukai, like any of these I would take over Tamako Market. Like, wow.
I think a lot of it comes into like, because a lot of people, I think a lot of this comes into like your taste in sort of music as well, because I think it's like half and half. Like you have the sort of visual delivery with the music, and if you just don't vibe with the song, I have this issue with a lot of OPs, especially with Kyoto Animation, where it's sort of like it's there, it's very loud and it's very fun and it's very Kyoto Animation, but and it's almost like a statement of intent for what the show will be. But I don't want to hear this, right? Like I'll get it like a couple of times. So I was basically, I can tell you that the OP is 1 minute and 33 seconds because I kept on skipping it after the second time. But with the ED, I would just like, you gotta let that ride. I will ride that all the way down to Slumber Town. I fucking love that ED.
I will hold that L. I will, if you guys say so.
Absolutely. Because damn, I love that ED.
Well, listeners, if you are on YouTube, head over to the comments section and then say your favorite Kyoto Animation EDs, and if Tamako Market is in your top 3.
No,
I'll heckin' fight you.
Because it's gonna have to be Don't Say Lazy, right? Like that's almost like that's almost a guarantee.
Put that in my top 5 of like endings of all time of all anime. You know.
God, do you know what? Like with the amount of EDs I've seen, oh god, it's so difficult to put one on top. You know.
Yeah,
it's very hard. There's so many good ones, but Yeah, you'd have to get me after thinking for about an hour or two to work out what my favorite would be.
Let's do another podcast, and we'll do our top 10 lists of EDs. Yeah, that would be great.
I'm gonna give like those like random shows that just are sort of like we kind of talked about it that came and went, and you're never going to hear from them again. But they had like one like fucking fire OP. It's Miname Kamakura Koko Jitenshibu, the girls cycling club. It's a very mid show, but my god, the OP is such a banger.
That's like, exactly how I feel about Bodacious Space Pirates. Terrible show. Good god. Really wasted potential, more than Tamako Market. But that opening, Momo Closey, oh my god, it's so good.
Oh, I can't think of any mediocre. Oh, yeah, you want a show that has that is kind of overlooked but has an amazing OP. What's it called? I watched it a while ago. Shoot, I'm gonna get the name.
It's the best when you don't even remember the name.
I don't remember the opening. Oh my god. The Soul Taker. That's it. Soul Taker. I'm not sure if anyone's seen it, but Soul Taker has a song from Jam Project.
Really?
When you get a Jam Project opening, it's like you will listen to this thing over and over and over again. Like Soul Taker is a very flawed show. It's very interesting to watch because you got Akiyuki Shimbo. It's quite early in his development as a director. But then you get that opening, and I just stick that on YouTube on repeat, and I'll be like shouting, Soul Taker! Way!
Should we pivot now into Tamako Love Story? Just very briefly. This isn't a Tamako Love Story podcast, but...
Season 2, but I'll let you have it.
Season 2?
A million likes.
Wait, what?
A million likes.
Oh, no.
Season 2.
Oh no! I had to wait 12 years for Panty and Stocking Season 2. Man, you can wait a little bit longer.
I'm still waiting for Land of Lustrous. That's if they give me that, I can die happily.
Yeah. Oh my god, yes. All right, what were we talking about? Oh,
Tamako
Love Story. Yeah, so Tamako Love Story cuts out Choi, Dara, and it. Very early on, Mochizo confesses to Tamako, and literally the rest of Tamako Love Story is Tamako reeling from Mochizo having confessed and saying that he's going to go to college in Tokyo for video editing. And like, I don't know. With my low opinion of Tamako going into this, it was very interesting to see her presented with an actual like character thing that required her to do something instead of just, maintain the status quo and talk about Mochi. And then 2, I don't think Tamako had it in her as a character to carry this film. And that's what I'll say about that. So go ahead.
Oh.
Yup. QED.
Right.
Proves it's done. It's done.
I will say this. It's been literal years since I've seen Tamako Love Story. I didn't have a chance to see it today. Funny enough, I actually saw Tamako Love Story before I saw Tamako Market.
Really?
Because I remember when it came out, it was getting a lot of buzz. Like I know we said the show sort of kind of came and went, but I don't think Tamako Love Story did. I remember there was a lot of hype around it at the time when it came out, and people were like, "This is a fucking good movie. You got to watch this movie." And I remember watching it, and just straight off the bat, I was like, "God, that Kana is adorable."
She's so good in this movie. She's so good.
I don't think we stress enough how fucking adorable Kana is.
Yeah,
and Anko as well. She's very adorable too. Actually, everyone's adorable. They're all adorable, but Kana is like another level. It's like the fucking platonic ideal of adorableness is like Kano. So, but in my mind, it's been so divorced from. I can remember like the major story beats, but I can't really recall like the minutia of Love Story. So I'm just gonna like say that I'm gonna let you guys kind of have this.
All right, Build, hit me with it. Come on.
What do I hit you with Tamako Love Story? Well, I literally watched it less than 24 hours ago.
Same.
I literally watched it yesterday. So, right, Tamako Love Story. What? How did that showing go? Well, the first thing I'll mention is like my youngest brother, who really likes Dara. Right, he asked, "Where's the bird?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but the bird got cooked." He's now being eaten. And he was like, what? Oh, he's gone into roast. He's like I said, right, roast chicken.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
That's another callback to a good Kana joke.
Happy he felt when about 80% into the film, suddenly he starts talking. He's like, "Yes, the bird's alive!"
It's like a one shot. Yeah.
It's like, oh my god! Like I thought that bird ain't going to appear in the film, and then he does, and it's like, oh, do you know what? I actually felt really happy when Dara appeared, just for that one little scene. Yeah, and I was like, no, I didn't feel bad for joking about the cooked thing. Like, that was quite funny.
But did you feel emotionally invested in the relationship between Kana and Mochizo?
Oh, well,
Tamako
and Mochizo. Right, now that, though. Yeah, okay, so that you can really tell in Tamako Love Story that the whole, this is Naoko Yamada, and this is how she would eventually develop into the director she is today. And like so much of it is in this film. The way that she does her shots, the way that she frames things, like the backs and forth between Tamako and Mochizo is very similar to Nozomi and Mizore in Liz and the Bluebird. And it's like, wow, you can really see Naoko Yamada in this film. She is there. This is her film. This is everything that she's about in this film. And she takes these two characters who, you know, throughout the whole series are like, you know, really silly, bumbling fools when it comes to love. Like, oh, Mochizo can't remember Tamako's birthday. Tamako doesn't even have awareness of Mochizo's birthday sometimes and forgets. And like, because they're so in their own worlds, it's like, but now they're going, you know, Mochizo's like, I got to go to Japan, to Tokyo. Oh no, looks like I've got to tell her my feelings now. Now I'm in this situation. And then he does it. And then Tamako freaks out. Because she's like, what's just happened? And she's like walking away and she's like a robot and she's kind of like going, and like skipping and jumping.
That scene, by the way, like all these years later, her like walking away. Oh my god!
Yeah,
that's like it's still with me, dude.
It's so good. The way like she's like, it's like Tamako malfunctioned.
Yeah.
As a person, it's like her circuitry had fried. The whole my world is Mochi. My world is the shopping district. Now my world is Mochizo. And then like afterwards, it's like she's talking with her dad and granddad, and it's like, oh, we're going to be making some Mochizo. And then they're like, have you realized what you've been saying? She keeps Mochizo all the time.
That was a good joke.
And it's so good. And they kept doing it. And it's like that repetition. The comedy's very good in Tamako Market because that repetition, like the whole Dara is like lost in like track B or for something like you said Yatta earlier. And it's just so good that just as a multi-layered film, the drama was good. The romance was good. Like that bit at the end, it's like, oh, I told a little fib. He's not really going to Tokyo forever. I just lied to her.
Credit to Midori. She's a great character.
Yeah, Midori is good. Midori is very good. She's a schemer, but she schemes for the benefit of Tamako. She's there because she's Tamako's best friend. And she wants the best for her. And then it's kind of like Midori has now reached like the end of the way she is. It's like, now it's like, I accept Mochizo. He is the best for her.
Can I actually, on that note, can I ask you guys a question?
Go on.
Were you guys rooting for Mochizo?
Absolutely. 100%. Love him. My boy came through. He said what he wanted to say. He was struggling so hard through that whole film. My boy came through.
Because I think of like what season 3 of Sound Euphonium when somebody else is going to have to talk to somebody and confess their feelings for them, and how actively I will not be rooting for that individual, and contrast that to like how.
What individual?
Are you sure that Reina is not going to
exist?
Oh, it's the dude. It's Mochizo's twin over in Tamako. You know,
right? Okay, I thought you were talking about the Reina Kumiko relationship.
Oh, fuck, dude, no, I'm there for that. I'm rooting hard for that. But there's a certain boy that needs to like.
Oh, is that going to be in the? Oh boy!
Well, if they follow the novels. Please don't follow the novels. Please.
Well, you know what it is. We had this with Urusei Yatsura. They didn't follow the manga, and it made it a lot better.
There you go.
Don't follow the novels. Don't follow the manga. Do your own thing.
Here's the thing, right? Believability, right? Suspension of disbelief. Do I believe that Mochizo even likes Tamako? I mean, they say that he does, right? But why would anyone like Tamako? That's kind of where I get off this train. I'm like, there are a lot of good women out there. You are a pretty good dude. You can swing a lot higher than Tamako. I'm not gonna lie to you.
That's harsh, dude.
I mean,
harsh. I'll tell you right now, dude. Tamako reminds me a lot of somebody in my life. I would totally. I love Tamako, dude.
Oh, okay. We're gonna steer out of that one. But anyway, Midori and Kana are right there, and it's just like, come on, Mochizo, wake up.
Oh, dude, he could not handle Kana or Midori for that matter. No, they're supposed to be together. They'll it's like the Montagues and Capulets, right? They'll unite the traditionalist and the sort of new wave of Mochi.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. The whole thing, like with the telephone across the street. It's like, this is Romeo and Juliet, except with Mochi.
Now, I will tell you,
yes,
Tamako Love Story would be much better if both Tamako and Mochizo died at the end of it.
No, doesn't do.
No, it would have been a much better tragedy.
That would have been a big moment. Where you're like, what the hell just happened? Anko walks in and finds their like dead body. Oh, they had suicide. They had a suicide pact. Well, that took a turn. Because I was thinking, have you guys ever seen what was that show? The Witch Show, not Flying Witch, but it was a show about a year or 2 years ago. It was about it was a witch. She had like white hair, and she would sort of travel around.
The witch, Tabibito. Traveling Witch is
Traveling Witch. That's it.
Right.
Traveling Witch. Episode 11 of Traveling Witch is one of the most breakneck tonal shifts I've ever seen.
Oh, it didn't get that far.
Dude, it fucking turned into Higurashi all of a sudden.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I remember like watching that. Like, I'm saying this. If that happened in Tamako Market, I would probably like die of like sadness because like my babies, they just died.
You want the best for them, including Dera. Dera.
What's a happy ending for Dera, by the way? Him and Shiori, or him? He finds a good bird.
For Dera is that he actually Dera on the Southern Island was the happy ending for Dera, that he's just lying there with his shades on and he's just saying, hey, make some mochi. I really want some mochi. I'm really hungry. Look at me. All that weight I lost in episode 8, I put it back on because I love mochi so much.
I loved it when he lost the weight. I think it was Midori or maybe it was Kana where they're like, you look weird. You look weird, right?
He does look weird. He's clearly designed to be this rotund blob, and then his other forms.
He is the perfect ideal of moe blob.
Yeah, he is.
And that's the thing. Like, I think like the most moe people in the show is probably like a lot of the guys. So like Tamako's dad, Tamako's granddad, Dera, and Mochizo, I think would be like, you just got to root for these guys. It's like when the granddad like went to hospital, I was like, no, not him.
Yeah, he's too pure.
Oh no, he choked on mochi. Oh god, it's like if anything bad happened to these people, I would be so upset.
I couldn't handle it.
Have you guys ever had mochi?
I had it today. I had it today.
You had it today.
I literally I woke up early this morning. I had a couple of episodes to get through, and I was like on the weekends, like me and my other half, we like ordered together, right? We have to get something together. So I woke her up and said, I want croquets. Like because those like Japanese style croquets, and I was like, okay, doing some research, and I found this Japanese restaurant that's pretty close to us. The guy's from Japan, and he's like. And apparently it's pretty good. So we went there and they had like heart-shaped mochi. And I'm like, well, it'd be rude not to, right?
Yeah. Listen, You also missed Mochi Day by a couple days.
I was disgusted. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I even showed it. It's like, oh, October 10th is Mochi Day.
October 10th is Mochi Day, as we know. Yes,
and every day going forward. Oh man, but yeah, I had it today. I enjoy mochi, but it's definitely a thing that I would have in moderation. Dara, you have to hear that. It's like I don't know. I'm trying to think of something like strawberries for me is another one. It's like I like strawberries, but I'm not craving strawberries on the regular, right? I can easily sort of take it or leave it. Mochi, it's also quite diverse though, like if I've had like some tonkatsu and they'd give you like a tiny little square of mochi afterwards, and then but you have fried mochi, it's something entirely different, and then you have mochi that's almost like potato. And as an Irishman, not to be stereotypical, but there's a way to win me over, make it like a potato.
I had convenience store mochi. I had like 104 yen mochi, and just out of a plastic package, and I was not ready for it, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I love that.
That's like that would be me with matcha.
Matcha's great.
I like matcha.
I am not a matcha
ice cream.
I find
I've had matcha ice cream. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
We have a
shop in London. I've had it.
Good.
It's lovely.
It's good.
We have a Family Mart next to us, and they sell the matcha ice cream, and that's actually fine. But it's like a matcha tea, for example. There's a bit of like an after. There's like a how do you say this? There's like a texture to it that I just don't vibe with. Unfortunately, I'll take the mochi.
Yeah, much like how
you're going to shoot Tamako down right now. I know you are.
No.
Well, no. I was going to say, much like how you don't vibe with matcha, I don't vibe with Tamako Market, so that's fine. We should get to the closing segments of our podcast, which we have done in every episode. First, we would do recommendations of like what if you were into Tamako Market or if you're into some other shows, where would you or what else would you recommend alongside Tamako Market? And I'll defer this one to Build because off the top of my head, I don't have one.
Oh, you don't have one, but okay, so Tamako Market, you gotta watch something with some cute critter that is dumb. So let me just say, watch Precure. There's loads of dumb animals in Precure.
So I was wondering if you were talking about Tamako or Darrow. You just said some cute critter that's dumb.
Good one. But yes, watch any Precure show. They have dumb animals in it and has lots of magical girls that beat up things. Now, just imagine Tamako doing that. You could actually. I actually imagined in the end of Tamako Love Story that they would climb on the Shinkansen at the end and start fighting in a giant robot. Which, by the way, is Shinkalion, which has a Shinkansen in it, which is a giant robot. You could watch that too. Did you know that it's actually the prequel to Evangelion?
Is it?
Yes. I'll leave you to find that one out yourself, but it actually is.
I feel like I might be having a Tamako moment right now. I'm like, is it really?
Yes.
Oh, that's the show on Anime Music Quiz that when Cruel Angel's Thesis comes up, everybody puts that in instead of Evangelion to be coy.
Yes, of course. And you got to watch Shinkalion. What else? Tamako Market. I would say any Iyashikei anime. So I think Aria is a good thing, especially with the fact, well, this is more serious, of course, but Aria has that world of Neo Venezia. You're exploring this lived-in world, and Tamako has that as well on a much smaller scale with the shopping district. And I think if you want to see something that does the same kind of thing, but over a longer period of time, watch Aria. I'd absolutely recommend that. I think Laid Back Camp is another good one for this one as well. It's really slow paced. You see like girls being interested in something like camping, right?
Yep.
Well, you've got a girl who was interested in mochi. Well, what about camping? Camping's a really niche thing, isn't it? So watch that too.
In that vein, I would also throw out the only recommendation that came to mind, Non Non Biori.
I was literally going to say that, dude. You got me. I was going to say Non Non Biori and Flying Witch.
Yeah, Flying Witch too.
Yes.
They would be like, Okay, so the other thing, this is the big moment, because I know I'm going to offend Kai. Like T minus 10 seconds. We have this sort of like tier list going on for Kyoto animation shows, and so far we've had Clannad, which I think was in the A tier. We've had Seneuphonium, which was S tier, and we had Free Eternal Summer, which was, I believe, B tier, but a high B tier. Okay. So we've been pretty uniform on where we've been landing.
Yes,
we're not meeting in the middle here, I feel. So where would you put it on a hypothetical tier list from S tier to, I don't know, F tier?
I'm gonna say A. I think Tamako is definitely one of the stronger Kyoani shows in what it sets out to do and the world that it's in. It's definitely my kind of thing. It definitely won't gel with everyone. Kai. But yeah, I think it really works as for what it is. And it definitely shows off Naoki Yamada as a very promising director in what she would eventually become with her later works. And I absolutely highly recommend Tamako Market to anybody who wants to get into that. So I'd absolutely put it in an A tier if I was doing a tier list of Kyoani stuff.
All right, let me jump in, because then you can get the final word, Yata. I would say I would completely agree with most of everything that you guys have said about Tamako Market in relation to Naoki Yamada and the place it has in the cultural landscape. The part where I would differ from you guys is the efficacy of the show. I do not think it achieves its goals as effectively as it possibly could. And also that I just think the ambitions that the show has are nowhere near any other Kyoto Animation show. Even we just talked about Free Eternal Summer, which is, I would say, pretty focused on this one constant idea and explores it very well. Whereas Tamako is kind of like listless almost, or shambling, or scatterbrained in a lot of ways.
These adjectives, just
get
an arrow through the heart every time.
It is what it is. We're not gonna.
No, fair is fair.
Hey, I would put it in the C tier, definitely below Free Eternal Summer.
Okay. I kind of expected that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes.
But I feel like you played devil's advocate in the fact that I think it could have been like, you're like, fuck these guys. It's E tier. And
it's not that bad. And like I said, there's a ton of great character side stuff that I totally enjoyed. And I wish there was more of, or was more of a focus that was central to the season. So it's not all bad, certainly. And I didn't hate it, so.
Okay, great. I think I'll just, for the record, I would probably say, for me, it would be A tier, but for the sort of like integrity of this sort of like larger project that we're doing and the list itself, I think it's fair to say that it could probably be a strong B tier for me. I think that's where I officially would mark it in.
So I will take that as a back and forth. I put Free Eternal Summer in A tier, and then we put it in a B tier. So if you accept that, I will also accept Tamako Market in B tier.
Oh, awesome. See, we're so civil, and like now this is. I feel like this might happen again in the future with Shinibyo because I feel like it might be similar. Sort of like,
why do you feel it might be similar? That's interesting.
I fucking love Shinibyo. It's like my favorite Kyoani show, and I think it might not be your favorite.
It's certainly not my favorite, but I don't hate it outright. I think Hyoka is the one that I hate outright. I really think Hyoka is really stupid and gets carried on its production values.
I was thinking about Hyoka because I was thinking like, I think Hyoka might have been like the pinnacle of like school festival in Kyoto Animation. Like their school festival arc is really tight, and
I think a lot of people love Hyoka.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like. For me, it would be like, it's essential that you check it out if you're a fan of Kyoto Animation, but it's not something that I was like, I need to watch that again. The same way it would be like with Shinibyo or Kyoto or Seneuphonium or even Tamako Market. I did enjoy it though. I will say that. Spoiler: we're not doing Hyoka in this.
Yeah, not on the list. Sorry,
not worthy of. Along with Violet Evergarden and K-On! And Haruhi Suzumiya, apparently not good enough for this list.
Really?
Oh, we should tell you. We should tell you that. We should tell you the 8 shows that we selected. It's like, try and figure this out, because it's like, it's very us. It was like the second season of Free, not the first season, the second season.
The second season.
Clannad After Story, not the original one. Obviously,
not
Tamako
the
Market.
Osamu Dezaki one.
No.
No.
Not K-On! But Tamako Market, obviously.
Yeah.
Myriad Colors Phantom World.
Of course.
Munto.
Ah, right.
What else are we doing?
Chinibio.
Sound Euphonium and Nichijou, of course.
Yes, Sound Euphonium and Nichijou. Because you have to actually put something in there that's worthy of being in there. It's like a very fun little curated list. As I said, emphasis on the curated part.
Yeah, I mean, unless you end up having a final boss, which is that weird Happy Science short they did in the early 90s.
Oh, man. I think somebody made reference to that the other day, and I was like, whoa, that's a deep cut.
It is very, very bad. But do you know what? If you want to see the origin of KyoAni, you have to watch it.
That's what I think is really cool about this and doing this project, is we're seeing like the full spectrum, and we're seeing the growth, we're seeing the change, we're seeing the them move as a studio and move into being one of the most renowned and best studios in animation. So it's been cool. And Build, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
No problem.
Just sharing your expertise with us.
And it was awesome.
If you want to, please plug your Discord server, your Twitter. What's going on? What do you do? Group watches all the time? I know.
God, right. Great. So yeah, I'm doing group watches literally every day on my Discord server. We're watching at the moment Sugar Rune. We're about halfway through. Yeah. So Sugar Rune being the Moyoko Anno created manga with whose husband is Hideaki Anno, of course. We're watching Precure, we're watching Gold Ran, we've got movies every Saturday, and I always continue to do my stupid things on my Twitter, of course. So,
and if someone wants to follow you on Twitter?
It is just at BuildKnuckle. So yeah, just find me there. I will always be doing dumb things on there, so do follow me for that.
I will say this, the next guest is going to have a very tough act to follow. I will say that I think you did a great job, and I agree with everything you said.
Honestly, thank you very much. I mean, it was great having someone that agrees with me so much on Tamako Market.
I guess they want to say great minds think alike and all that, you know?
Of course. But yeah, I haven't done a podcast in years, so it's amazing that you've had me on. So thank you very much.
And he never missed a beat.
Thank you.
And we're back next time with the big one. Let's be real. It's Munto. It's sort of been like hyped at this point. If you've got this far with us, it's been all leading to Munto. It's literally downhill from there.
Munto's not even that bad. You make all these jokes.
It's just the fact that Munter in
you see our previous episode for that explanation. Yep,
actually, Rick, you might get that as well. Munter, are you familiar with that expression?
I don't think so, actually.
Maybe it's just an Irish thing. But it's kind of a derogatory term for someone who's less than physically appealing, we'll say.
I see.
And it's also just, it's the apotheosis of like, well, you had all these shows to pick, and you chose Munto. like literally like Violet Evergarden. Like that would be like a numbers generator would say like, oh, a lot of people seen that show, right?
We can't do that.
Or a silent voice, right? Speaking of Naoko Yamada, right? But yeah, we're gonna go retro, or as retro as it gets with KyoAni. Outside of Odd Shorts.
Odd Shorts.
Good name for
subcontracting work they've done, like Harry and Goo and what's that other one? Tenshi ni Narumon. Like they appeared in those shows, but yeah, you're not going to go into those ones, are you?
So no. Maybe when we go through everything, maybe in the future, if the fans demand it and we have to go through everything,
that would only require 1 million likes. 1 million likes.
Yeah, that's all you have to do. But yeah, you can check out the Munto episode on my channel at youtube.com/clearandsweet or on the RSS feed that this is going up as a podcast right now.
Yes, and we will see you guys then. I'm excited for Munto. I'm not going to lie. Kai does all the heavy lifting when it comes to guests, but I came through with 2 of the 7 or the 6, and I got a friend coming on next, and he's not afraid to tell it like it is, so maybe he'll be brutal with Munto, because I see if it's not becoming apparently glaringly obvious, I kind of like everything. So I have the critical faculties of a Tamako, probably.
Yeah, we need some spicy takes. We need some kanas, and
because I like it's sort of all banked on like Myriad Colors Phantom World being this sort of like, well, we can all agree that was shit, and me coming on here sort of going like, actually, I kind of liked it.
We'll get your spicy takes then, I guess. Yeah. Oh boy,
I have some like I fucking like I unironically like Amnesia and Diabolic Lovers, like as whatever like the trashiest trash you can find is I probably like enjoyed it on some level.
Well, everybody stay tuned for the takes on the rest of Kyoto Animation shows, or well, the 8 that we've picked, and we will see y'all next time for more Endless 8.
We're gonna go enjoy some mochi. Bye bye, love you, bye.